Hello and welcome, I'm Abrax, and in the second phase of the Division 2 Season 10 PTS, Striker has overgone some pretty huge changes, but are they good? Well, in this video I'm going to go over the changes, try them out, and see if we're looking at a buff or a nerf. Let's get into it. Before we look at the changes, let's quickly go over what Striker currently does in the live game. Right now in live, when you use Striker, every weapon hit adds a stack of 0.5% weapon damage up to 50 stacks, and you lose 2 stacks per second. Equipping the chest piece increases max stacks from 50 to 100, and using the backpack increases the weapon damage per stack from 0.5 to 0.65%. In the live game, Striker has always been on the lower end of fine. You could make it work, but compared to other DPS builds and other gear sets, it's always kind of been lacking. So it's a perfect candidate for an update, especially with Heartbreaker becoming almost what Striker wants to be. In the PTS, Striker has had one hell of an overhaul, some good, some bad. The first thing to note is that the Striker stacks from the build have changed from multiplicative damage, which is the way the damage is calculated behind the scenes, to additive damage, which is a nerf, but with changes made to the set, it is kind of countered on paper. In the PTS, Striker's Gamble, the 4-piece bonus, has been changed to weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up to 100 times. 2 stacks lost per second between 0 and 50 stacks, and 3 stacks lost per second between 50 to 100 stacks. Adding the chest increases max stacks from 100 to 200, and changes stacks lost to 4 stacks lost between 100 and 150 stacks, and 5 stacks lost between 150 to 200 stacks. The backpack increases weapon damage from 0.65% up to 1%. And the 2 and 3-piece bonuses are 15% weapon handling for the 2-piece and 15% rate of fire for the 3-piece, which is the same as they currently are on the live game. Okay, so there is a lot of good here, genuinely. First, the base 4-piece without the chest or the backpack has had both a stack and a damage increase. The damage per stack isn't that much of a buff thanks to the stacks changing to additive from multiplicative, but the max stacks is a nice change. Then we have the backpack, which I would pretty much always run with, increasing the stack damage from 0.65% to a whole 1% per stack, which takes Striker's damage back to a similar point to its former glory in the Division 1. These are some pretty good changes, making it a much more viable damage build. However, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. I have no idea where the splitting of the stacks lost came from, but I feel like it's not really a good move, especially when we get to the chest piece, but more on that shortly. Striker is a gear set built around the idea of rewarding you for your accuracy with an increase of damage, and if you keep hitting your targets, you keep your damage. Losing the original 2 stacks per second flat I thought was always a good balance. 1 lost per second wouldn't be punishing enough and would make it pretty easy to keep the damage up. Over 2 would almost feel too punishing and make it difficult to maintain the stacks, making the build almost frustrating to use. Splitting how the stacks decrease seems like an elegant solution to the problem of giving the player too much power, but in practice, it just makes it hard to keep stacks up and doesn't really make the build worth it. Like I said, 2 stacks feels okay, but 3 feels a bit punishing when the player is in the thick of it and getting those stacks close to 100. You then feel like you're being punished for skilled gameplay, making it harder to keep your stacks, and it just kind of feels bad. That was a bit of a gripe, but here is my major gripe with the rework. The chest piece. First, the chest piece increases your stacks from 100 to 200, which is nuts, but good nuts. This is a talent worth equipping the chest piece for. However, because of the effect this piece has on the stack decay, I can confidently say in its current state, I will not be using the Striker chest piece. Yes, this piece is giving you 100% extra damage at the upper end, but you're losing 5 stacks per second, and below 150, you're losing 4 stacks per second. On top of that, you have to land 200 shots before you really take advantage of the full set, and realistically, how often are you going to do that? At 200 stacks, it would take 10 seconds to lose 50 stacks. Below 150, it'll take you 12.5 seconds till you drop to 100. So if you did manage to get stacks up to 200, it would only take 22.5 seconds to drop all the way back down to 100, which is probably most of the time when you're moving from room to room in a mission or between waves in a control point. In my opinion, the chess piece is really not going to be worth it, which is a shame because this could have been a really game-changing piece. In my opinion, a simple fix for this would just be keep the stack decay as a constant, then +1 for the chess piece. If you have the 4 piece, like the original set, you constantly lose 2 stacks per second, add the backpack and it's still only 2 stacks per second. None of this split loss amount, just a constant 2. When it comes to the chess piece, it doubles the max stacks but then adds 1 to stacks lost, making the max stacks 200 and the stacks lost per second 3. Yes, I think 3 might be a little bit much, but for doubling the damage it seems like a fair trade. Harder to maintain the buff, but in return, you receive a pretty big one. I have spent a pretty good amount of time with this iteration of Striker. I've used the base 4 piece, I've used the set including the chest and backpack, and I've used only the chest and only the backpack with the 4 piece. If this dropped in live as it is, I'd be running it as a 4 piece with the backpack to increase the damage up to 1% per stack, but I would ditch the chest piece, swapping it out for another damage talent. Obliterate feels pretty good for the faster moving build, but I ended up switching between Glass Cannon and Focus. Focus hits like a truck with this version of Striker, but a scoped in AR isn't for everyone. I think Glass Cannon with a FAMAS will be my go-to. It's really solid damage and I've always enjoyed the risky play of Glass Cannon. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there is some good here, but there is also some bad. They are very close to returning Striker to its place as the DPS king, but there is still a little more to go. I've also seen a few players asking for healing to be added to Striker, but I honestly don't think that would be great for the game. As a player, hell yeah, I ran Classified Striker most of the time in the Division 1. I loved that build, but that is the problem. I pretty much only ran Classified Striker in the Division 1. Having one build with that much damage plus self-sustain is too overpowered and it completely killed the build diversity of the first game. Sometimes for the health of the game we need to stop thinking about what we would want and start thinking more about what would be best for the game overall. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for future Division 2 content. And as always, a massive thank you to my supporters over on Patreon for helping me make the channel the best it can be. And if you would like to join them, you can support the channel for as little as £1 a month. I'll leave a link to the Patreon in the description below. Have a great day, and I will catch you in the next one.